have to have actual field number on it, because the man does have to go to the
flag, if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, join us if you stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stuart, could you please have our vindication?
Let us pray. Now, Father God, we just also say thank you once more again for your grace, your mercy. We thank you for the opportunity to come and share and serve your people, our citizens. We ask you to bless this council, mayor, and we make it safe our great city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Thank you, each and every one of you for being here. And we're down to public comments, and we have a young lady here. Diana, that's,
I'm Diana Batson, Batson.
we welcome you to our council meeting. Thank you so much. And you live at Sarah's Bend, right? Yes, ma'am. We'll give you, be happy to hear from you. We'll give you about 5 minutes, and look forward to any comments you might like to share with us. Thank you.
Well, I probably have many comments, but I really just came here to see what you people were up to these days.
Okay.
But as I was leaving my subdivision, there was a big 18-wheeler on my residential street, which I believe when we had our little meetings regarding the development of the Chick-fil-A and the other Mercury development, we were promised there would be no 18-wheeler trucks on Sarah's Bend. And that truck told me that we've been on Sarah's Bend several times. So I went to Chick-fil-A, I asked the Chick-fil-A if they could let their trucks know which way they're supposed to go in and which way they're supposed to go out. I would appreciate it maybe if the DOT, I don't know if that's city or county since it's all split up, would make it clear that there are no 18-wheelers that are to be on Sarah's Bend. There are to be no people at your county fair, your city fair, parking on Sarah's Bend. I don't think it's been clear. And I'm upset. I feel like anything I say here doesn't matter, because when you all voted for this, those 7 lights couldn't have gone up faster in a wink of an eye. The 7 green lights approving the development. It was a done deal before y'all talked to us. You had to talk to us. You didn't want to, but you had to.
Well, we thank you.
And I guess right now that's all I can say, but I'm disappointed in every single one of you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, and we'll certainly look into this and see about, that's your Sarah's Bend in the county as opposed to the city, and we may have to talk to the county about, proper signage. We're just dealing with this uptown with trucks, no through trucks and other things, and I can't imagine why a tractor trailer would be riding up and down Sarah's Bend.
And also, the crepe myrtles that you put up on the road that comes into Sarah's Bend cover up the stop sign. So while they're nice and pretty, they don't do the stop sign justice.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It says no public parking or through traffic.
We'll have that. with
There is one, no 18-wheeler trucks, but it's as you turn into Sarah's Bend. The problem is the people delivering to Chick-fil-A come down and then take a ride on Sarah's Bend.
That's
And come out.
And use that road, which y'all said couldn't handle that kind of traffic.
totally inappropriate. Totally inappropriate. We'll be looking into it, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's, you sure will. Thank you for being here. All right. Approval of agenda, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at it. You're gonna have to delete 6A. And B is still on. And then you got it.
It's deleted, it's postponed to, Mayor.
Oh, it's been postponed too?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. We're gonna postpone B, and we're gonna have one, which is C. Adoption and authorization for the mayor to sign SPLOST 4 bond resolution. That will be have one more, which is gonna be 6D. Approval to provide for fiber optic cable in the amount of $74,254.14 to be paid from SPOS 4 funds. And this is, City Hall and Public Works, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, can I ask why B is being, not studied?
They did not get the signed contract back to me in time.
They're trying real hard not to have that light up for all that, work, all those Christmas and Thanksgiving stuff.
They're still planning on cutting down the wire starting cutting down the wire on Friday, even without being under the contract.
Entertain a motion that the agenda be approved with the deletion of 2 items and the addition of C and D under 6. Have a motion. Have a second? And a second. Thank you, Cam. Anybody have any questions, any reservations? Hearing none.
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened with A?
You're going to get more information from the community development director. He felt like he needed to give you more information and he couldn't get it to you all today.
Okay. We still have a motion and a second. Janice, will you please?
The motion is to approve the agenda with the deletion of 6A, the deletion of 6B, the addition of 6C, which is adoption and authorization for the mayor to sign the bonds SPOS 4 resolution, and also an addition of 6B, approval to purchase fiber optic cabling to be provided from City Hall to the Public Works Building in the amount of $74,254.14, which will be paid from SPOS 4.
All right, folks, would you please vote at this time? And
There are 6 in favor, Mayor.
thank you so much, council members.
Mayor, I want to ask you something. You know, we had that discussion with AT&T, and they have fiber optic cable supposedly run all over the city. Would it not be feasible for us to utilize their cable?
Answer.
Steve, did you hear the comment that Ms. Naughty made?
Not at this time, no ma'am. Well, not at this time. We have the, AT&T, I do not believe is as truthful as they were saying, that it's just like everywhere. We already have, we're trying to get the fiber optics down at our public works because of our GIS department primarily, to allow us to do that transmission. The issue at hand, and I'm very sorry for squeezing this in at the last minute, was that fiber has been being sucked up all over the southeast with other folks running their projects. And my vendor said, you know, Steve, we just got to move on this now. We were able to lock in on X amount of fiber to be able to pull this. We need to make that purchase now, and if you wait, the project will be delayed until sometime in February, was what I was told.
And if the GIS office was back here at City Hall, we wouldn't have that expense, is that correct?
We still want, our goal is to get our own private fiber between that large user group down at Public Works.
Right.
We are currently paying $700 a month for a 100 megabit connectivity, a tenth of the speed that we would get, and we're going to be paying that for all time. If we do this one-time charge, we're done and don't have to pay anything on a monthly rate, and that was where we had built that in as part of our SPOS network infrastructure funding, to have this for now and all time done at 10 times the speed that we would be able to get through Charter at this point.
Or AT&T,
Yes, ma'am.
anytime soon.
Yes, ma'am, anytime soon.
Thank you.
Voted and taken care of that little matter. let's move down to item number, Ms. Hanson. We're down to item number 7, looks like.
Lee, with the way we did the agenda, we don't have to do a separate consent again.
I thought we just approved the consent agenda, but we don't.
We just approved the agenda.
All right,
Okay,
let's get the consent agenda.
thanks, James.
Everybody understand the motion? How about the motion again?
May I repeat it, cause.
Go ahead.
So Councilmember
Go
Wilson.
ahead.
Councilmember Wilson, A and B have been deleted, and we are adding C and D, which I read. The motion is, oh wait a minute, did you get a motion?
Yep.
On the consent, who,
Council Stewart,
okay, well, that was on the agenda, y'all did the consent also?
second.
You did the vote?
Same two. All right, we'll vote one more time.
The motion is
Go
to
ahead.
approve the consent agenda, deletion of item A and deletion of item B. We are adding 6C, which is the adoption and authorization for the mayor to sign the SPOS 4 bond resolution. And then we're adding 6D, which is approval to purchase the fiber optic cabling, which will be run from City Hall to the Public Works Building in the amount of $74,254.14 to be paid from SPOS 4 funds.
All right, please vote again.
7 in favor, Mayor.
Bad number, thank you so much. Now let's move down to item number 7. Ms. Hancher, how about bringing, let's talk about special service delivery strategy, the city of McDonough.
All right, thank you.
We got a lot of papers here, so you want to go to the podium and lead. It's hard for us to see you down there.
I've got so many papers down here, Mayor,
Oh,
if
that-
it suits everybody and you
All
can hear me just fine, I will,
How about moving over?
I'll do one, I move to Frederick.
Scoot your chair
Maybe
over,
it'll be
Lee.
easier, and then
Yeah,
you
just
have a
chair
better
over.
chance of seeing me. But if it's problematic and you need me to move, just
No,
let me
that's
know.
fine.
And also, of course, Buddy Welch is here tonight, our attorney for SDS, Lost and Splost and everything in between. So, and he, I'm sure will have some information to share with us and chime in and be able to answer questions that you all have as well. But we wanted to go ahead and have this special call meeting tonight, of course, so that we could go through and take a look at these, the service delivery strategy agreements. These are the agreements that have been negotiated on the city's behalf with the county. Under House Bill 489, the county and the municipalities have an obligation to negotiate out these agreements once every 10 years at least, in order to make sure there are no duplications in service as between the county and the cities, and also really to make sure that the city, the citizens within the municipalities are not having to pay for or be responsible for funding services for which they're not receiving the benefit. So that's where we are, and the current set of service delivery strategy agreements are set to expire at the end of this year, and we need to get a new set of agreements on the books. They have to be filed with DCA, and I think that all of the cities, except for us, have signed off on these. And I don't think the county has adopted them yet, is that right?
No,
They're waiting on us.
They were not going to consider it until the cities had signed off.
So they're waiting on us. But I do think, I agree with you guys, I think it's worthwhile to take a look at these with a fresh set of eyes. Of course, we've got some new council members on board since the city first started looking at these. And so I think this is a good exercise. If you want to, I think that the way we ought to begin the discussion tonight would be to look at, if you look at tab 7, the first thing there that you'll see is the actual service delivery strategy agreement itself. This is the overarching agreement. It's the intergovernmental agreement that sort of sets the main terms and the framework
for everything. The big stack of documents that you got, the Form 2s, those deal with the specific services being rendered by the county and by the cities, and how the division of those. But this is going to be the main agreement that governs, sets the framework, as I said. And so, I don't know that, have you all seen this agreement before? I'm not sure. This is one you have seen, okay. And so I thought we might just briefly then run through it and see if there were any issues you have as we go through it. But let's see there. And again, if you're just looking on that first page there, under definitions, you'll see that it references the set of big stack of documents, as I keep saying. That's Exhibit A, that's Exhibit A 1 through 43, those Form 2s. Buddy, on page 2, the SPLOST 4 agreement, I didn't know, since we had just amended that agreement, if there's needed to be some language there to say the SPLOST 4 intergovernmental agreement as amended, or if that amendment to the IGA made any difference insofar as this is concerned. What do you think?
We can add to that as amended. No problem.
Very minor thing. The third paragraph there, the application of revenue generally, and it says, I mean, as I read it, it makes sense to me on its face in terms of the revenues that will be generated, have to be first applied to the cost of the respective service prior to levying any property tax to fund the remaining cost of the service. But I was hoping you could maybe explain, when you guys were negotiating this one out, how are we, what sort of protocol are we supposed to put in place to ensure that this is happening? Or, which services does this apply, which services at the city do we have that this applies to specifically, do you think? How's this supposed to work out, practically speaking?
Well, the key to it is that counties throughout the ages have literally dumped all of their funds into the general fund and paid the bills, and then whatever was left over, they levied the property tax to pay for it. Now, if it is a service that is primarily for the benefit of the unincorporated area, the members of the taxpayers in the unincorporated area has to pay for that, not the city residents. In order that we would get the full benefit of it, they've agreed that as for each service, if there's any money generated, it will be applied to the service. So if you've got building permits, as an example, all the funds that they collect for building permits have to be applied to the cost of the operation of the building permit department. If there's any extras, then it goes into the general fund. If there's a balance due, then that is a item that would be paid for by property tax. But the way we have it set up is they have to apply it so we would get full benefit of the revenues that are received from the service, and then we get a rollback in taxes. The prime example would be fire and EMS services. They have to apply all of the funds they receive from fire and EMS services to that cost before they bill us for the cost, and then we get the rollback, and we get a rollback of 0.4 mils on that. Does that make sense? The idea of it was to make sure we got the benefit of the revenue being applied to the cost before the cost was assessed against us.
So it kind of plays into that millage rate reduction formula.
It does.
Sets up the framework for that.
It does. I guess the best example of it is if the cost was $1,000 and they had revenues for $100, then what would be plugged into the figure would be $900. If we did get the benefit of the $100 would go into the general fund, and we'd never get benefit of that at all, as it applies to the services that we've negotiated.
Are there any provisions set up at the county, if you know, or did y'all talk about this, that would safeguard or make sure that even at the departmental level, that the money, the revenues that are being generated there's a way to track and make sure that that money is segregated out. So maybe use your example,
When Mike Bush was there, and I feel sure that with Fred Ayala doing it now, that they are accounting for it. And so when you ask them for if you look at the CAFRA, the county CAFRA, it shows what the expenses were and what the income was and how it was applied.
sure.
And if you call out there, they can give you that literally, well, when Mike Bush was there, and I'm sure, I haven't had to ask Fred for it, but I'm sure if anybody wanted to call and ask for that, they could give you that. Matter of fact, in the calculations that they gave y'all for your fire, the information they sent to y'all on that, we've asked for some calculation information, and it showed the income that been applied.
And I guess the reason why I was asking about that is even to take it a step further, and I'm sure this is something y'all have already talked about, is if you took something as simple as like administration, and that's just, y'all know, it's one of the form twos, it's the very first one on the list, just to use as an example. And that, I guess, would include like the county administrator within that department and those sorts of folks.
They're prorated out based upon employee per department.
But so, to the extent the county administrator is working on a project that relates to the fire department, since you were just talking about that, well, that would seem to me to be a project even under administration that the city residents should not have to fund, since that would primarily be for the benefit of the county, or maybe even put a finer point on it, since we have our own police department, that we should not have to fund that specific project. There's not really, I don't know if is there a way to account for that, or is it just?
The way it's accounted for, and you understand that you can spend more time and money on accounting than you can receive back, but the way it's done is they take the total number of employees, divide that into the administrative cost, and if the employee works for the fire department, then that portion of that person's salary goes to it. Now, whether or not they are pulling out on a daily basis for what maybe the county administrator does for fire this minute and for garbage the next minute, they're not doing that. And I don't think they would do that. I think that the record keeping of that would be somewhat prohibitive.
I think I agree with you. I mean, I think that's, I mean, I think that's the point. And so, I mean, did y'all talk about special tax districts? I mean, that would seem to me why it would make a lot more sense for the cities to just go to special tax districts. It's a lot simpler.
We tried to get special tax districts in every single negotiation we've had since the beginning. And the county did not want to go to special tax districts, but the formula gives the same benefit as if it was a special tax district. So it's giving you a reverse accounting for it is what it amounts to. So in fire, in fire services, they are giving the rollback of the county fire service on the taxpayer's bill based upon a percentage of the cost. And we don't get a full rollback of those taxes because the county is coming in and providing some fire service, and the chief and of your department, the chief of the county's department have worked out service areas. And in those service areas, we're trying to balance out the service as best we can. But that was the way it was negotiated out the last time before we got to this one. But to answer your questions, yes, it would be easier just to say they're special service districts, but we never could get the county to want to go to that. And as long as we were accomplishing the same purpose with the formula, and that was something that Mr. Lee came up with, Billy, if you remember, how to put in the formula so we get the same benefit.
But if even just one of the cities say, no, we'd rather have special tax districts, that's what we have to do, isn't it?
Yeah, if the city of McDonough simply says, we're not gonna sign this agreement unless we have special tax districts, then that's a decision mayor and council should make. If it is, then we'll have to start the process all over.
Well, I don't know that we have to start the process all over, but I mean, I'm just trying to listen to what you were saying, and I don't frankly know if that's something that the council, the mayor and the council haven't even had a chance to think through, and, I mean, I appreciate everything you're saying, in terms of what the millage rate reduction formula accomplishes versus the special tax districts. And it seemed to me, I read your Gwinnett County case, and it seemed to me in that case that, which was great, and that was a great, huge win for the cities, and it seemed to me in that case, which, and Buddy represented all of the Gwinnett County cities in that case, by the way, for those of you who may not know that. And it seemed to me in that case that it was, it seemed to me to be suggesting that the special tax districts would be something much more favorable to the cities because it would be a way to more accurately capture. I mean, just, I use police here as an example because that, and they use, police was an example there too. But, you know, you have Stockbridge in the county, and then, you know, the county is, those are the folks who, excuse me, the county is providing police services in the unincorporated areas and also within the corporate limits of Stockbridge. And you have the non-participating cities, if you will, that's, you know, the rest of those cities. And so then it would be a very easy thing to look within that district, being the unincorporated area in Stockbridge, in order to know where you're gonna pull your money from to fund that. And I know that y'all, I see, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked to me like there was a formula used in part, and then also the special tax districts also, but maybe I read the opinion wrong, but that just seemed to me.
Well, again, the law is clear that if you cannot reach an agreement, then you have to go to special tax districts. That's the only way it will work, is go to special tax districts unless you have an agreement. Now, even after we won all of the cases, the case in Gwinnett County, even after we won it, they sat down and reached a different agreement from what is actually in the order. They actually turned around and started not taxing certain areas and going ahead and taxing, but rebating the tax to the cities for providing the service. So there's all different ways that you can do this if you are going by way of an agreement. But if you don't have an agreement and you don't have an understanding of how it's going to be done, then you do have to go to the special tax districts. But before you go and spend that time and money in doing that, what you need to do is do the calculations of what the formula would produce versus what the special tax district would produce. And I think when you do those calculations, it's going to show that we're getting the identical benefit for the city taxpayers. The city doesn't get a check, you know, for this. We don't get any money out of it. All this is for the taxpayers. So, and Mr. Lee spent an enormous amount of time, he and the accountant, who's y'all's auditor? Jimmy, Whitaker? Yeah. Jimmy Whitaker and Mr. Lee, who was the city manager at the time, spent an enormous amount of time developing a formula to make sure that we were getting the benefit of it. But if y'all want to go through a calculation of it, we can certainly do that for you.
Do you think there are any tweaks to that formula that were warranted after the Gwinnett County case? You know, didn't that formula y'all wrote before the Gwinnett County case? It looked to me like there were some additional fees that were either supposed to now include in that calculation or not include in that calculation.
I don't
I
know.
can't remember exactly which as I'm sitting here, but I remember pulling out that list and trying to compare it. I was hoping you'd be able to remember.
Of course, I know our formula,
Right, yes, sir.
you know, but there is nothing different in the Gwinnett formula, except they decided to do it a totally different way from what they were doing and what the judge said they should do and what they ultimately did. They ultimately had some tax districts, they ultimately collected some tax monies and refunded it to the cities, and the cities use that to lower city taxes, so. But, the way the formula is set up is the, you know, the total county department expenditures is established, whatever that is for that department. And then you determine what the ad valorem tax would be to, would generate from that, and then you apply the user fees, the fines, the assessments that are collected, and used for that budget unit. And you apply that, which is the same thing that you're doing if you set up a special tax district. The question is do you give a rollback or you just not tax it? To me, 6 and 1/2 does the other.
But maybe worth going through the calculations in any event, since the agreements are supposed to last 10 years, and if there's any difference over a period of 10 years, that can make a substantial amount of difference.
Well, again, you would have to plug
Of
in.
course, that's y'all's decision to make, but maybe at least worth doing the math to figure out.
Have you done that?
I mean, no, I
Have you not applied, y'all haven't sat down and applied the formula?
we haven't even had an opportunity to do that yet.
Well, the agreement's in place and the formula's been in place. So that's something that we,
I mean, we should be able, I mean, I would think that Lolita would be able to sit down with me and we could figure this out without a whole heck of a lot of trouble.
That is a document that has already been prepared and sent to the city on each one of these when the city had a rollback.
Oh, yeah, no,
We
the Form
specifically-
2s they have, yes,
We
sir.
specifically requested that from the county, and I know Fredericksburg provided a copy of it. Billy, I think you saw a copy of it too.
I did.
And it gives you the exact breakdown of how everything's calculated and what the difference were and how they did it. Now, whether someone has gone in and audited the county's figures, I doubt that's the case. But normally what we've done in the past is ask Jimmy to take a look at the figures, and if there's any problems with the figures, to tell us. But I've never heard anything from Jimmy that the calculations were wrong in the past. Now, whether he has seen this year's, I can't tell you what's been done there. We can obviously send it to him and let him check it.
so Leah, is that what you're recommending?
I mean, it's entirely up to you all, but I would think that, just given the duration of the agreement, that it would be, and it sounds like maybe the document is already out there, Frederick has it, so it would be a simple matter to get the millage rate calculations, the millage rate reduction calculations, and then we can look at that versus what the savings would be versus the special tax district scale.
Well, it sounds like what we're doing is we're playing catch-up when the information's already been here. So, I think we need to kind of get our act together here and do that. If that's what you're recommending that we do, then I think,
I think it's a worthwhile exercise, given the impact that this can ultimately have on the city for the next 10 years. And yes, we are behind in the game. This is a long, it's the Form 2s, the different agreements that we're looking at. I mean, I think we got those maybe 3-4 weeks ago. But it is a process that the city has been working on, different staff of the city have been working on for the last, maybe the last year, Buddy, does that sound right?
We have sat down with Frederick and with the mayor on 2 separate occasions. We went through every single document to ask them, is this the service the city is going to provide? Do you want to change it in any way? And how are we going to handle this? Now, we've already done that, and we put the documents together, and then we thought the matter was coming up to be resolved sometime in September, I guess it was, and then we were asked to provide a copy of all of this, which we've done, and we're glad to do it, and we're glad to sit down and go through any and all of it with anybody. But think if I could just walk through this, or she could just walk through each one of these agreements, because you first of all gotta determine whether you wanna provide the service, or do you want the county to provide the service? Or is the county required by law to provide the service and we don't have any say-so? And if we went through each one of those agreements and made sure that we understood what McDonough was gonna provide, then the only question is whether or not the money's right. And if the money's right, and you've got the formula right, and they become satisfied with the calculations, then, either we got an agreement or we don't have an agreement.
So what we need to do is just go through the process of each agreement right now.
I think we ought to finish going through the overarching, the first agreement is an initial matter, and then turn to the Form 2s and look at that to see, and he's right, to look and see who was supposed to be doing what, and on what terms.
Well,
Yes. But, I mean, and so I think one of the decisions you have to make is, do you want special tax districts? Is there a reason to want to have special tax districts, or do you want to have this millage rate reduction formula? It is an option. You can agree.
I don't think there's anybody up here that is ready to make, to say that to you. We need to go through all of this and understand what we are doing first.
No, and this
What's
is,
being provided. We just need to move on through the agreements so we
absolutely.
understand them.
and listen, this
And
is
then
the first,
after that, I think you made it very clear in each one of your notes that, that we could go to a service, district.
and that's the thing, right? This is the first this is the first opportunity that you all have had to talk about this as a body and discuss what your opinions are and what your choices
So
are.
can we do that? Can we move on?
Let's do. So go through to 5, that's the millage rate reduction formula we've been talking about. 6 covers sort of the same thing, return of service. I don't think that that's anything unusual, that's just, the city can do it or the county can do it. Under paragraph 8, Buddy, I was wondering if that's something the county had suggested there. It looks to me that that's something that's contrary to state law, frankly.
That was just the way that we sat down and agreed 20 years ago on how we were going to resolve a problem if it came about. And this was a quick, easy way in which to resolve it.
And I suppose that is the same thing, that if you reduce, I mean, because I guess what my brain was going to was the special tax districts, because if somebody didn't agree with the formula, then the option would be a special tax district. And that, the way I read the law was that if somebody didn't agree with the calculation, then the county was required to go to a special tax district, and so I thought that this would not be an option, but
No, that's
forgive me.
not correct at all. You either agree as to how you're going, who's going to pay for the service and how it's going to be paid for. You either got to agree to that, or a judge has to decide that you provide it or the county provides it. If we sit down and agree and it says McDonough is going to provide police services, then they have an absolute right to provide the police services. And the county cannot provide the police services, and the county cannot tax you for providing the police services. So, this deals with an issue if there is a dispute concerning the calculations of the formula. So if Jimmy says that the figure should be this, and Fred O'Yella says it should be that, and we can't sit down and agree, then there's a process by which we appoint people to make the decision, and we agree to be bound by it and not to go to court and argue it. It's like a forced arbitration or forced mediation when we bring in independent people to make that decision. And we did that to stay away from litigation. Litigation creates problems that you have to deal with now in the future. So that's what we came up with, and I think it's fair. But it doesn't, if you don't agree to the figures, it doesn't automatically move it to a special service district. in order to resolve those issues. But here's the key to it. In this, you have the right to opt into any service or opt out of any service during the period of the term. So in other words, if tomorrow you decided that you didn't want to provide fire service, then there's a notice procedure that you go through. You give them the notice. There's a time period that gives them time to adjust, to put on the people that they're going to need, to have the equipment that they're going to need in order to provide the service. If you decide that you want to take back over some service that you've agreed here that the county's providing, you have the right to take it over. You just have to give them the notice and take it over. And when you take it over, the formula applies to it. And they don't have to redraw a district. They don't have to do anything other than apply the formula.
So if we annexed, well, I guess that's it.
Annexation now is there's a specific provision in here how you deal with annexation. And the way it's set up is that as long as your density issue doesn't go over a certain amount, then they can't object. If it does.
Is that controlled by state law? I mean, I would rather us not be limited by this agreement in terms of where we want to annex. This appears to really limit our ability to annex going forward on the terms.
It doesn't prevent you from annexing. All it does is say that if you annex, you're not going to increase the density beyond a certain point.
But why should we agree to that? I mean, they shouldn't be able to object to state law sets how we.
Because what was happening is every time a city would file an application for annexation and notify the county, they would object to it. And then when they objected to it, then it was stalled, and there was nothing the cities could do except go through the long drawn-out process. And, you know, it was taking a year to get a piece of property approved for annexation. And that was the reason we got to this agreement that would give you a process to move forward with it as long as you wasn't getting outside of the density issue. That was the only real question is that the perception the county had is that a piece of property would be annexed into the city, and the city would increase the density so much that it.
Zoning's not grounds for them to object to annexation.
Well, it is one of the grounds that they can raise as an issue. And, you know,
I mean, I'm not sure that we can really actually see what the proposed limits are on this map. And when Frederick, I'm sorry Frederick is not here, guys, because when he was looking at this map, it's not in that agreement we were just looking at. This is the second form in Form 2. And there's a map that's attached there as Exhibit A3, I think, and it sets out what are supposed to be the boundaries of the city.
well, if somebody can't read a map, all you have to do is send an email saying, I need a brand new map, and that can be drawn by the county or drawn by us, where there's no question about it. But
No, I'm sorry, I mean, I think that to me, I think Frederick's, when he was telling me about it, and again, I'm sorry he's not here, it was more of a philosophical difference, not necessarily just the map's problem, but just why should we agree to be constrained in ways that we're not required to be?
because sometimes it's better to have agreements between public bodies so that you don't have continuous argument and continuous fight and continuous litigation. And that is the purpose of an agreement is that it is never in favor of one person or the other. It is a compromise that you reach, that you decide to live by. And if this is not an agreement that you want to live by, then that's fine. We can start and put in whatever y'all think is best for the city of McDonough. You can make arguments about every single part of the document, no question about it. Just a question of whether or not you want to stick with this or you want to do something new. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Vincent.
I just have a couple of questions. Buddy, I know you said that the other cities have already consented to the agreement,
Yes, ma'am.
but what's your drop dead date for the city of McDonough deciding what it is that we want to do?
Well, the drop dead date for SDS is since McDonough is the county seat and has the population that it does. If we don't have the agreement filed by the end of the year, then sanctions can be implemented, and normally sanctions will be implemented in February. And if the sanctions are implemented, there's only two ways to remove them, and that is one, through the court system, or two, through reaching an agreement and filing it with the Department of Community Affairs. Now, you can extend for certain definite periods of time to delay that, but I don't know that you gauge any great benefit from it.
Could we not maybe do a 6-month interim agreement or something like that to leave things status quo? Or, I mean, to Sandra's point, or then even moreover,
I think the real question is, why can't we sit down and y'all tell me exactly what you want, okay?
Well, I'd like to, I wasn't finished, I needed
Sure.
to have that, that's okay, that's okay. I needed to have that question answered first. I really seriously doubt that we need an extension, but what I do hear coming from our legal person is that there are some concerns, and I'm hearing some statements from Frederick. I'm not sure why he's not here, but I'm hearing that there are some concerns which have come from him. And basically, I'm of the opinion at this moment, I'm somewhat uncomfortable because I really feel like much of what's being said are things that should have come out maybe through email or some other way, through a position paper or something, through advisement from staff before today. And I would just make this recommendation for consideration, that given that Buddy is here, that he would just take us through the process of reviewing all of the information. And this basically serves as a work session on this document, because 10 years is a long time, and we do have several new members on this council, and I just think that that would be a fair process to all parties.
Okay, well, let me just try to walk through, first of all, each service, and then we'll come back to the main agreement and see where we want to look further.
Does he have a copy of this?
I don't think you do.
No, I had asked if they had any comments to send them to me, so I could be, review them and be prepared to talk today, but I haven't received anything on it.
These aren't comments, Buddy, they're just, I told you, I explained to you when I talked to you, it's just your matrix with just the notes on it, so that they could not have to go through every single one of those agreements to go through all the cities versus the county. So I think you'll find it's just.
I think I can walk through these things very quickly with each one of you.
That
I
can be, you
think
can
that,
have this copy.
okay. First of all, administration is the first topic we have, and that deals with the county's administration, and they're going to pay for the county administration out of the general fund. Now, you understand that there is a lot of different funds that go into the general fund. But once the money goes into the general fund, then it becomes an accounting process. And that's all it is. It's a simple, that's not simple, but it's an accounting process. Where did the money come from, how it's to be spent, and what's left over. It's basically the same thing that you do here with your general fund. So you're going to pay this out of your general fund. If you had a special fund, if you set up a special fund to say that we're going to only pay for administration out of dog tags, as an example, then you would have a special fund, the monies would be segregated, but that's not what you normally do in the county process for administration. Annexation is is that you have the right to do it, you're gonna pay for your cost of that, out of that, and then there's an annexation dispute resolution. And what it does is that if there's a change in residential zoning category to a single-family residential class that results in a unit density of 3.6 per acre or less, so if it's 3.6 or less, they can't object to it. Same on multifamilies, if it's 8 or less, they can't object to it. Now, this doesn't affect existing properties in the city, and it doesn't affect existing zoning. It only applies to what you may annex in later on. The idea there was trying to have some type of uniformity between what the county was doing and what the cities were doing. Building permits, inspections, and impact fees. Locust Grove and McDonough are handling their own, so you gotta pay for that through your general fund. But there is a rollback, so by the rollback, I simply mean that the county cannot tax the taxpayers of the city for that service. The rest of the cities, Hampton, Stockbridge, and Henry County, they're going to be taxing the people in the incorporated area at the same rate that they tax the people in the unincorporated area. Buildings and grounds maintenance, we allow everybody to be responsible for their own buildings and grounds responsibility. There are some intergovernmental agreements with that apply to the city of Stockbridge. The city of Stockbridge over the years has built facilities in order to get county services up there, such as to keep the library in the city. The city of Stockbridge built a building and allows the county and the library to use it. They built, in order to get the tag office up there, the tax office up there, they built a building for that. In order to have a police precinct inside the city, they built them a building and converted the old city hall so that there would be a precinct there at all times, and they would pick up the benefit of the cars coming in and out. Cemeteries, there is a small change to the cemeteries where if the county ever decided to get into the cemetery business, it would be on their own, and we would be entitled to a rollback, because each one of the cities are maintaining their own public cemeteries, and we get fees for that. City prisoners, the city prisoners are set up, and here's one thing that you have to manage through your courts. If a person is locked up on a state charge, you do not have to pay a housing fee for that person. If a person is locked up on a city ordinance violation, then you do have to pay for it, and the rates did not change. Now, the key to this is that when your city police write a speeding ticket or a DUI ticket, that they're charged under state law and not under the city ordinance. Because if it goes out there and the ticket shows that it's under a city ordinance, they're going to charge you. Otherwise, they can't charge you. City transportation, each city is responsible for that. Stockbridge is providing a 15-person van that they buy and provide to the sheriff's department for the transportation of their prisoners. And y'all pay for that out of your general funds. Code enforcement, everybody is doing their own independent code enforcement. So there is a reduction in property tax for all the city taxpayers in the county. So the county has their own code enforcement, and they cannot charge you anything for that service inside the city. The comprehensive plan, there's no change to the comprehensive plan in the way that we do it. The last comprehensive plan was in July of 2009, and there are certain requirements for it to be done. The county prepares the plans, submits the plans to the city. The city ultimately gets the plans approved, and there are maps that are attached to that. If they're not clear or correct, then someone needs to let us know, and we'll change that. Coroner service now is a state service. The county's required to provide it. The state law requires that the counties provide coroner service, and it's paid directly out of the general fund. So we can't, municipalities cannot get into that service. Now, court and indigent defense work is done in your courts. You pay for, and what is done in the state courts, county courts, the county has to pay for it through its general fund. Court security and service on that, the county provides that for the state court, superior courts, magistrate court, juvenile courts. Detention and collection of unrestrained animals, the county is fully responsible for that countywide, paid for out of the general fund. Detention facilities, the county provides that, paid for out of the general fund. The Development Authority, that's a countywide service, and they provide that. If you wish to have a Development Authority or independent city authority, you do that, but you pay for it through your general funds. Development plan review, this is the plan reviews, and McDonough is going to continue to do their own plan reviews, and Locust Grove is going to do likewise. Hampton, Stockbridge, and Henry County are going to do theirs joint. So you get to roll back, I say you, I mean the taxpayers get to roll back for that purpose. The elections for federal, state, and county is a general fund item for the county. They pay for that. The city's contract with the Board of Elections, and there are separate contracts in here for each one of the entities. The city of McDonough is 2007 until terminated, and that means that if you decide you want to start handling your own elections, you go through the notice process to terminate that service. Electrical, the only one that's providing electrical service is the city of Hampton, and so the city of Hampton is, of course, going to continue to provide their service, and that's a perfect example of a segregated fund or a service that generates enough money to pay for itself, and you don't have to go into the general fund to pay for efficiencies. 911 is, of course, just our emergency communication. The county's providing for that. It is paid for through fees. There's no property tax for that. Emergency management, the county pays for it, pays for it out of the general fund. Emergency medical service, and this is your EMS, and the county is required to provide that service. It's countywide service. It's paid for through the general funds. Environmental health, the county provides that, and it's also paid through the general fund. Fire protection, on fire protection, the county is providing fire protection to all the cities except for McDonough, and it's being paid for through the general fund and SPLOST funds. The SPLOST funds are, as you know, for capital improvements. McDonough, we have a mutual aid agreement. The chief of McDonough and the chief of Henry County spent a large amount of time putting this document together from other agreements that exist all over the state. We
have met on this several occasions, and we have organized it in this manner. And this is something that both of them recommend is, that y'all enter into. Now, Exhibit B to that document is how you compute what the rollback is. And this thing started back a number of years ago, where we started at like 1.3 mils or 1.4 mils, Billy, and then it decreased over a period of time, and it's now at 40% of a mil. And that's the rollback calculations. Now, that is the same rollback that we have this year and we had last year. And there are figures in the calculations for that have been sent to the city on that, from the county. GIS and mapping services, Henry County is going to provide the service to Stockbridge and to Hampton. And the cities of Locust Grove and McDonough get a millage reduction according to the formula, because y'all are going to continue to provide your own service there.
That was just a typo in there.
That's right.
Okay.
Housing Authority, Hampton and McDonough have their own housing authority, and they're being operated through the authority's general funds. Investigation of public officials has to be done through, I believe the GBI is what we ultimately decided would be the investigative authority there. It would not be through the county investigating McDonough, McDonough investigating the county. If there was an issue concerning that, everybody agrees to contact the GBI and let them do the investigation. Library services, what we may get is county general fund and the library board funds that they get from states and fees. Parks, construction, and maintenance. Here, the general fund, SPOS funds are being used by the county. Same thing with each one of the cities, and the agreement that we reached before concerning the divisions and the payment of cost of improvement remains the same. And of course, that is a split of 30-70% on the improvements to the parks. City is still required to provide for the police protection services within the parks. Planning and zoning, Henry County provides that to Stockbridge and Hampton, and to the unincorporated area of Locust Grove and McDonough provide their own zoning, and you do get a rollback for that. Police services, Henry County is providing the service to the unincorporated area to the city of Stockbridge. City of Stockbridge has an additional agreement where they pay additional funds to the city, to the county for services, and they provide the precinct building and facilities and all that goes with that as part of their agreement with the county. Hampton, Locust Grove, and McDonough are providing their own police services, and each one of you get a rollback. Now, there is a document that's attached to that to help everybody understand how to calculate the formula. And those were using the 2010 budget, but it hasn't changed. The formula hasn't changed. And this is just an example of how it's calculated for your rollback purposes.
Buddy, is there a part of that agreement that requires the city to pay the county or to reimburse the county for any services, like under the mutual aid agreement, if the county sends officers over to us?
No, it's a swap.
How do you mean?
We don't pay them and they don't pay us on the mutual aid.
There was a chart.
Now, that's on fire on fire services. On the police services, if we ask for additional service, they can charge us for that. So as an example, if the chief said all of our officers have a conflict because, you know, they shot the wrong person, they shot the chief,
Right.
let's just shoot the chief, and then they would bring in the county to do the investigations and prosecutions and so forth, and they could charge you for that. Prisoner details, you have the right to use prisoner details, but you pay for, that the county may have available. County pays for theirs out of the general fund, and the city's pays for theirs, whatever that may be, in your general fund. The purchase of fleet vehicles, you still have the right to join with the county and use any of their bid services that they have for vehicles or any type of equipment that they can buy. And also, if the county can get a better deal on gas, you can use their bids and obtain your gas and petroleum products through that. Road, street constructions. This has always been a very difficult issue, but what has happened over the years is the county agrees to maintain certain county roads that enter into the city. There's an itemized list of each one of those roads inside the city that the county is required to maintain, and they're required to maintain it on the same basis they maintain that road in the unincorporated area. And everybody pays for their own. The benefit that you get from that is that the county is levying a tax to pay for roads, for operation and maintenance throughout the county. You are very similar to what they were doing in Gwinnett County, where Gwinnett was maintaining certain roads inside those cities. And when Judge Barrett heard that particular case, he said that the roads were a organic whole and that we couldn't go and try to divide them up. What we were trying to do in Gwinnett, they had so many of these subdivision roads. We were trying to get Gwinnett to be responsible for the subdivision roads and that the corridor roads, such as the state highways and the county roads that were built up there, that they still maintain. But the judge said no, that they were a county, that they were organic whole, and he just left it as it was when, in their previous meetings with those. Senior citizen centers are to be paid through the central of the general fund and through SPLOST funds. Senior citizen transportation is county pays it through the general fund. Soil erosion, Henry County is going to provide that to the city of Stockbridge, and we get a millage reduction from the county for all the other cities, including McDonough. We get a roll back for that. Solid waste, everybody's collecting their own garbage and paying for it either through contract service or through their own municipal service, but they retain all the incomes from that. Of course, the county is, all of theirs is contractors. Stormwater management. Stormwater management, Henry County and all of the cities have an understanding concerning that, that there will be no property tax levied for that. That has to be paid through the fees. If it is levied, if they, for somehow or another, change the law and the county started levying for stormwater, we would be entitled to a road back, is the way it's set up, because you're providing for your own stormwater management through an enterprise fund. As you know now, you can charge those fees, but and they said that that was not a tax, it was a fee for that service. The Supreme Court has said that. Of course, the legislature would have the right to change that if they wanted Vehicle and equipment maintenance, everyone, maintains their own, but we do get a rollback for that, for the county vehicles and their maintenance. We don't get charged for that. Water and sewer, there is, an agreement concerning how the water and sewer services are to be provided. From the old agreement that was in place, the parts that had been completed either by the city or by the county were taken out, and this agreement with the authority is what is in place for everyone. So I would be glad to try to answer any questions you have concerning any of these. And since we're at the very back of this, I will start with the water and sewer. If you've got any questions concerning that specific agreement, we'd be glad to talk about it.
That's my first question.
All right.
On the notes there, the current agreement has been revised significantly to further limit the McDonough ability to provide water sewer. You just, could you explain that?
That's my assessment.
It has not. Your area of service has not been changed. As a matter of fact, it has been increased and corrected where out at Publix, there was a swap off in areas out there. This new agreement includes those swap out areas that managers from the different city and from the county agreed to. And the reason for that was you had a sewer line that was running down Cass Creek that could gravity flow Publix and a larger area out there, the school and those types of facilities out there that used to be served by the Henry County Water Authority is now being served by the county, by the city. Yep, so your area has not been decreased, your rights have not been decreased, that I know anything about, and if someone has got that perception of it, I think what they're probably confused with is there were certain things under the previous agreement that had to be done over certain periods of time, and certain liability and responsibilities, such as your community, them taking that over and putting in the new meters and so forth, which has all been done, and that has now been taken out of the agreement.
So if we were to annex some land, we would definitely, those customers would be our customers.
Not necessarily.
No. The key to it is sewer. If you're providing sewer, then yes, they would be transferred over to you if you were providing sewer. If you were not providing sewer, it remains the same. It just remains the same. But if you annex it in and you are providing the sewer, then you got to pay for whatever you acquire from them by the annexation. So, and that's been.
So we had the case of where we had sewer, and the county had been providing, but we were able to provide the area, so we gained that.
That's right.
So if we annex an area.
It's by way of gravity now. You couldn't, as an example,
Yeah.
you couldn't go up to East Lake Road and annex something in up there where there's already a sewer plant in place and they're providing the sewer, or have the ability to provide the sewer.
Council members, this is something that Keith Dickerson, our Public Works Director, and I mean, we've looked at, and Keith has got some concerns over some of the provisions that are in there as well, and we're trying to work up, in certainly, like, I appreciate what you're bringing to us tonight, and of course, we represent the Water Authority, and to the extent there are differences here, I mean, I feel it's incumbent on the city and as the city's attorney to point those out to you all. And I think that this is something that I would like a chance to bring you a revised version of for your consideration. But Keith explained those differences to you perhaps. And then certainly, if just subject to you all's discussion, thoughts, consideration, that's something that could be sent back to the Water Authority. I don't think this is appropriately necessarily a part of the service delivery strategy overall. I know it has been in the past, but I don't think that it subjects us to DCA penalization and so forth if we carve this one out particularly, hold it to the side. The Act contemplates the service delivery strategy agreement being executed as between the county and the municipalities, and specifically contemplates that the authority is not a party to the agreement. Now, I know that you can include these agreements, you can agree to anything, but I don't think that we trigger any penalties or any penalties for anybody else if we carve this one out and take some time to look at it.
I'm sorry.
I don't think that's correct. I think that the law is very clear that there are provisions in there that deal specifically with water and sewer, deals with the rates of it, and and the law speaks to governmental entities and authorities that are involved in this. If somebody will tell me what the problem is, then you can get people to talk about it. But we don't have any idea, I don't have any idea what the problem is.
Neither do we. Keith,
And that's
can you
because
bring
we
your
haven't had
concerns forward?
Well, Gail, and that's because we haven't had an opportunity to discuss that with you guys, who are, you're my client, and I haven't had a chance to discuss this.
Well, we're
with you.
here, but Keith, do you have any concerns you want to share?
There. One of the,
Yeah, never mind.
I do.
And while y'all are doing that, I would be interested in seeing a GIS map, Lee, that shows which sewer lines are actually owned by the city of McDonough. My concern more than annexation is the issue of development. And this is Councilperson Varner's district, so I don't mean to get out ahead of her, but the South Point area is growing, and I'm just wondering, now that we have basically met all the requirements of the other agreement, are we still obligated by ownership for those individuals to have to go with the Henry County Water and Sewer Authority as opposed to the city of McDonough?
And that's a good discussion I'd like to have with you guys.
One of the issues that I have with just the service area alone is Brush Arbor is not included in the service area. And right now, we provide through pump station, which actually pumps from English Oaks across the road to Brush Arbor and then pumps to our wastewater plant, which is here. We buy water from the county.
It's in your service area.
Brush Arbor's,
Yeah, it's right there, where you edged in. This is Brush Arbor right there.
yeah,
That's Brush Arbor.
this is Brush Arbor right here.
That's in your area.
Now it's out, see the red line? That's my service area, delivery
Oh,
area.
okay, all right, I see
So,
that.
so I want that wrapped up there.
Okay.
The other, one of the issues that we deal with is, definitely we need to have that included, is we buy water from the county, wholesale water for these two locations. Oh, sorry. For these two locations, and then we buy water for these two locations as well. And while we have pump stations for all of these facilities, we're reading the meters. We're taking care of all the water lines inside, all the sewer lines inside. And I think that we have to make sure that this agreement, that there's an understanding that we have water in this area, we have water over here in this area,
then we need to loop our system and eliminate buying the wholesale water and provide our own water. And the same thing can be said for up here at Brush Arbor. We have a 6-inch line right here to the creek that we can cross and cross the road here. And one of the reasons why, you know, the county goes up on their water in November, if I'm not mistaken, in the prices. So we're buying wholesale water, and then we're paying more for wholesale water in November. And then we don't raise our rates until July. So we have, you know, 7 months in there that we're paying more for wholesale water than what we haven't adjusted our rate. So I think, and I think anybody, even Henry County, would agree that to loop your system makes your system a lot better, and this tower out here would be better utilized by having more, you know, customers on it. And it is about 700 customers. Now, you're not going to increase, you know, all of your water sales by 700 people because you're already charging them some for buying wholesale water. Some of the other concerns are we getting locked in for any of this land out here, which is something that you all will have to decide how far we want to expand, or do we want to expand. But I think it's really important that we define that if this is our service or our delivery area, that we take complete control of that delivery area. And then there's some things in there about the fees, the impact fees, that I'm not even sure that I understand that we're supposed to be paying them impact fees for certain situations. And I'm not sure that I completely understand that. But we don't charge really, you know, an impact fee that we pay for, say, Brush Arbor if it was built. Are we supposed to be paying some impact fees to the county for them setting a pit meter out of the front entrance? I don't know the answer to that. And yes, we do need to sit down and discuss that. So there are a few other things in there that we've looked at that we think we just need to address prior to signing this for 10 years to make sure that we...
When do you want to sit down and do it? That's the key, is that we were supposed to have done this 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And we had a meeting set up, and then nobody showed up for it.
Well, I think we had a meeting set up with Frederick, and nobody else knew about that meeting, so.
Okay.
But, well, no, that's, I mean, it's a.
Just tell me when you want to meet, and let me get people from the water authority here, and let's get it over with.
It needs to be
Because
set
all of that can be answered very quickly. Because if you, here's what you need to bear in mind. Let's say that you don't have an agreement, that you can't provide service anywhere outside the city.
Maybe, except for that we have a right to provide service under, and we can agree, that's why I think this is a conversation we need to have. And we have to have it, the staff, and we have to have it with you all as a body before then we can go have it somewhere else. And that's why we haven't had conversations with you.
Well, don't you think that you as a staff, all of y'all should get together and hash it out? Then you know what you're bringing back to us, both sides, yours and theirs?
We need to discuss the issues with you first, make sure that we all understand what we're talking
Well,
about.
how quick are you gonna do that? We need to go ahead and do things, because when people, I'm hearing a meeting set, I'm hearing nobody knew about it, you know, why aren't we together? Why aren't we getting it together?
We're working on it, Gail.
Can we just set a time now? Because it's gonna be Lee, it's gonna be you, and it'd be myself, it'd be somebody from the water authority.
I don't think that we're ready to set that meeting.
Well, when are we going to have a meeting then, so you can have the meeting?
Can I please can I talk to you after the meeting, please?
Why after?
Y'all just let me know when you want me to come, and I'll make arrangements.
When are we gonna get together as a council?
If I could just follow up with you, Gail, right after this meeting.
Well, I think you need to follow up with everybody, because I'm asking it, you know, for everybody
Fair enough.
publicly, okay?
Fair enough.
Thank you.
You have a comment? Oh, yes.
Lee, do you want meeting, another meeting with Mayor and Council, is that what y'all want?
No, we're not ready to set that date right now. James, okay?
Can you give us some idea when?
Can I just talk to you after this, and if we can just have a short conversation after this, Gail, if you decide that we need to have another special call meeting immediately, I'll get Chance to send you guys out an email tomorrow, and and that goes public notice to the
Well,
paper.
only in your head I'm sitting here trying to understand what you have in your head about what this council needs to be doing in order to move forward. We've lagged behind in everything that we are doing with regards to all the other cities. I'm not pushing us to make a decision tonight, but what I am saying is, I don't understand what is in your head about how long it's going to take, what it is you have to pull together. And I think it's important that we understand what needs to be
Remember,
pulled
we talked
together.
about having an outside attorney look at this agreement, so I've just now been able to get that information to this person. And so as soon as he can review this and give me some of his opinions, then I feel like I'll be able to better relay that information to you all and have a discussion. And then we can.
And what type of framework are we looking at?
Mayor
Because
Copeland,
I suspect in the next few days.
yeah,
All right,
I just want to say respectfully, she has asked that we would just wait until she has the opportunity to get back with us. And I know that you included some information where you had some concerns relative to the agreement. And so there's a lot of moving pieces here, and we need a lot more information. And I know that time is of the essence, but I think that we should respectfully allow staff to give us what we need.
But what I'm
And
saying is,
I understand your
want us to be informed of the moving pieces and
Yeah,
the
and
lack of
that's-
not making, deadlines
And I
and things
think,
of that
that's
nature.
what Lee is saying.
Okay, thank you.
So what you want me to do, just wait till I hear from y'all? Whatever, changes or additions or corrections they want to make, let's make it in writing where there won't be any misunderstandings about what positions we are to take, because it's very difficult to negotiate with the county if I don't know what y'all specifically want. And so I need it in writing, is what I'm saying. And then we need to decide if we're gonna change, why we're gonna change. Okay? Thank you all.
Thank you. Lee, you have anything else
No, sir, not at this time.
at this time?
No, sir, I'm sorry, not at this time, I don't. Although I appreciate y'all's, I appreciate your latitude. And you know, I appreciate your patience with me. I've not been a part of this process. I appreciate where you're coming from in terms of why are we lagging behind? Why are we just now figuring this out? I just now am getting this information, just like you, there's a lot of information to process, but I'm not doing my job as y'all's attorney for the city if I don't make you aware of what's in here. And this is your first opportunity as a body to hear and talk about a lot of these things, and it impacts you for 10 years.
But what I have a problem with is that you have the ability to sit down with people who have done this year after year after year, whether it be in this city or any other city that's worked through this, and you can sit down and you can go through the things, and a lot of the questions I heard you asking, I think you would have had a much better understanding of those situations if.
I want to answer the questions.
Okay, all right. All right.
We may have a difference of opinion as to.
No, I'm not saying that, that's not, that.
But I'm
not
like
talking
you.
about a difference of opinion.
I'm talking about myself and Mr. Welch.
I'm not talking about
most
that.
layers,
I'm talking about
I
other parts of it, not understanding.
Yeah, Lee, will we get from them, we've had a discussion, Fred, and all of them, like, 2 weeks ago, and we had some concerns, we pulled out the, current agreement, and a lot of concerns there, and we were not going
like to ask this. When y'all sit down and you have some concerns and you see that they're there, I think they should be being shared with the council wide. We shouldn't be sitting here not knowing what concerns you had, our city administrator had, or our attorney had at that time. I mean, we really need information.
Okay? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Waste of time.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wanting to, call our meeting back to order because it was too much going on at the moment. I think, we may have differences, but in all instances, we should, have the ability to respect one another and, their position and, as they guide us forward, so.
Okay.
Next time, Gary, could you want to stay?
Yes, and I would appreciate, I would appreciate everyone who is here to, do a job, that we count on to do a job, that they impart information to us, because we have been pulled together to discuss this, and we know nothing about what their discussions were. None of that information has been provided, and that's what I'm saying, okay? And I think we've asked for proper communications over and over before.
We've gone around to providing that information at an appropriate time and,
Mayor Colton, before we,
outstanding, yes, ma'am. Go
yes,
ahead.
sir. Before we close out, I just wanted to kind of, highlight for Lee some of the areas of concern that I have, that I'd like to have additional information on.
Yes,
And it
ma'am.
has to do with, the percentages for annexation,
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
as well as park construction and maintenance. Jonesboro Road is technically a linear park, and then we've got Alexander. All of these, again, moving pieces that are out there, and we just need to be very clear about, the agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
The other piece had to do with, Chief, you've got your eye open as far as fire is concerned, right?
Yes, ma'am. We were just without an agreement.
Okay.
And we do operate with an automatic aid agreement, regardless. And it fits our needs. It fits our needs, it fits the county's needs, and regardless of anything, we work with an enhanced 911 system. When that call pops up on that screen, you're in a certain area, and that's where you're gonna go. So it just makes sense.
And I've never read the old agreement, so,
It had boundaries, particular territories that were decided on in mid-90s, and that part was just out of date. We built a new station, so some things just needed to be changed. But it's technically the same agreement.
and there was another piece, Lee, and I'm sure that it falls under annexation. I thought I'd made a note, and I guess I didn't, but it had to do with, there was something in the, terms of the agreement that said that if it's 8 units or more multifamily, then we can automatically do the annexation, or I think it was 3.6
That was right.
residential, but that sounds like it's based on some old zoning.
It is.
So I think we need to go back and take a closer look at that, because much of our zoning has changed over the past 10 years. So some of this, the areas in this agreement is based on very historic and probably in some instances archaic practices.
Well, if you think about it, annexation is not really a service you provide to citizens.
Right.
It is
Right.
a procedure under state law. Annexation is something that you cover under your joint comprehensive plan, which is something that we talk about in here, how the plan is going to be prepared. And again, a point I did not raise, just out of deference of the procedure that you outlined, let's let me go through it. And I think that was a good idea and a good suggestion. But Frederick had mentioned, and I remember this from an earlier discussion, that his recommendation was that the city of McDonough do its own comprehensive plan. And I don't know where we are on that, if that's something that has been put in place or moving on that project. You say it's not, so fair enough. But I don't agreement, but I can tell you that based on the way everything is worded, it's another joint comprehensive plan versus any provision for the city doing something for itself.
We can do our own, and then we can amend anything within this agreement on a broad comprehensive plan. That's done through DCA.
I was gonna say, along those lines, Mr. Welch noted that we can take on a service, give back a service at any time within that 10 years, so we can do our own comprehensive plan down the road. We don't have to do it
No.
at the beginning of this agreement.
Well, the comp plan process is a little bit different.
Right.
And so we do need to decide now what process we're going to use, because I believe last time, and I wasn't on council at that time, but basically what they did was take a plan from the city that was not a broad plan, and they dropped some of the components into the comprehensive plan. And so, once that document is adopted by DCA, then it in essence becomes the law of how we do things. So we really do need to take a look at that very, very closely, given the new construction that we're expecting to come online especially.
And I know that the key to anything that we get in the way of water is, and Keith, correct me, is gravity flow, right? That's the base of it. We really do.
That's the dangerous thing about that, what they're saying in that. Because if they put gravity flow out by Bridle Ridge and Clearwater, because they have water service, they're saying they can take it over. If they have gravity flow out there, even though we have pump stations and that's our
Right.
service area, because
Well,
they put gravity, they're saying.
That's why I
that
kept asking if gravity was the key.
it is the key.
Okay, so if gravity is the key, then that's the discussion we need to talk about.
It's one of the discussions.
Right.
There are other
Just one.
discussions.
I know there are a lot of
It
others,
cost us
but that
hundreds
is,
of thousands of dollars the last 10 years. It ain't gonna happen in the next 10 years, folks. And we'll get there. It's gonna take us a little time to get there. But, and Lee is having some conversations with some folks, and we gotta get it right this time. We won't have that chance anymore.
and on the annexation, where we have they have the agreement about how we mediate, what have you, concerning annexation. We also need, with annexation, we need to make sure that our agreement works well for us. Also, that it,
Or you don't have to agree to, I mean, like,
Well,
City of McDonough
right.
would have a different agreement than the rest of the other cities. And we could just simply say, hey, the City of McDonough decides to do what Georgia law says. Because, I mean, there's no reason why.
well, there are some reasons, because there was lots of litigation tied into things, and there are certain circumstances where we could do things locally and instead of legislatively and all kinds of things, so.
Fair enough, but I urge you to look at
I mean, it's
the
very
joint
complicated, it's not as simple as just doing it by that, because that agreement has bode well to keep people out of too many litigating circumstances, but we still need to look at it, because we know that we want to move forward with some annexation.
Anybody else?
I just got a
Go ahead, Roger.
question to Lee. Isn't the water and sewer agreement a separate agreement from the service delivery?
Yes, sir, it is. There is a 2006 Georgia Court of Appeals case that speaks very strongly on
I
this
think that's
point.
the main.
And, I mean, ask 10 different lawyers, you're gonna get 10 different answers, and that's why I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Welch on that point. But it's Alcovey Shores, and in that case, the Court of Appeals said that, the Service Delivery Strategy Act speaks to counties and municipalities, and yes, in fact, the law does reference authorities, but to the point that they're excluded. It uses the words authorities, but it emphasizes, but by using that word, that emphasizes the fact that they're excluded from the Service Delivery Strategy Agreement. And so in that case, in fact, the court, it's a very harsh decision, the Court of Appeals says, sorry, authority, you're out of luck, and the county and the municipalities can limit your territory, and they can limit your service area, despite what the general legislation or the local legislation says that created you. And moreover, to the extent that that means that you're going to have limitations on your ability to get state and federal grants in that service area, well, sorry, the Service Delivery Strategy Act contemplated that too, so you're just out of luck. I mean, it's a very harsh decision, but what it means, to your point, is that yes, it is a separate item, and we can carve that out.
Right,
With
we
no
can agree
impact.
with the other agreement, work those things out. and
With no
still-
impact. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is, please don't be overly, yes, there is a deadline to get this done by the end of the year. And yes, there are substantial penalties that can be imposed on everybody if it does not get done on time. However, the law says that if you engage in the mediation that is contemplated in the Service Delivery Strategy Act, that the penalties can be held in abeyance. They will be held in abeyance. That the mediator, the judge, will tell DCA, don't impose these penalties because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to work the situation out. Moreover, when it comes at the end of the day, if it turns out you couldn't get to the agreement for whatever reason, and you get to a Gwinnett County situation where the court has to intervene, they can say, all right, well, you were acting in bad faith, McDonough, and everybody else was doing what they were supposed to be doing. To McDonough, you're the only ones who are going to have the penalties imposed on you, and the rest of the cities in the county, they're not going to have those penalties imposed on you. So hold them in abeyance for the period of time that you're working things out, and then ultimately, if you reach an agreement, nobody gets penalized. If you have trouble reaching an agreement, the court has to intervene. They could impose a consent order on you. Then if there's one bad actor, they're not going to spoil the lunch for everybody.
Well, we can separate the water.
Absolutely.
So what we need to do is go through the agreement and decide what we're going to separate out.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
if we are able to do that, then we're able to move forward with an agreement
Yes,
that
ma'am.
does not in any way impede our other cities or the county.
None of our actions are
But
going
we
to
need
impede
to
that.
get on that and get very clear what we are going to separate out.
And
And annexation is, along with the water, is, I think foremost in everybody's mind.
And that is what this is an effort. to
Mayor, I
keep
have
this down.
one other comment, and it's really important, I'm really serious about this. And this point is, historically, we've kind of had a practice of having isolated comments where a few people knew about what's going on. This is a very, very important conversation. It's going to be a very important act on the part of this governing body. And Mayor, we all need to have the information. We cannot have these islands of dialogue in the same manner that we did with the budget. So it's very important that everybody knows, and it's also important that we have a timeline. When are we, to Gail's point, when are we gonna have the meeting? When are we gonna have the discussion about the concerns that staff has? Because there are some concerns out there. I really felt your frustration, but I do have to also give you credit for taking a stance on making sure that we didn't just go along with the process, that you did in fact represent the city, because that's what you're hired to do. But by the same token, there is a certain standard of operation that McDonough has, and being ill-prepared is not a part of that standard. So if we had known that everything was not going to come out today, that there were some concerns that staff had that we needed to further discuss, and this basically would amount to an informational session, then I think you would not have experienced the same level of pushback. It's just other folk knew what we didn't know.
Okay, and I appreciate that so much, Sandra, because that was a total misunderstanding on my part. I was approaching this as an informational session because, to your point, initially when we started LOS, and SDS, you all, or not everybody here, but the council who was here, designated the mayor and Frederick, because you had to have the chief elected official and somebody from staff, and they were identified and designated as to be the point people to deal with all this. And I think that's why these communications have been having. You're absolutely right. You all have to have this information, so that's why we are having this meeting right now, so that you all are getting the same information at the same time.
Did that occur several weeks ago?
Ma'am?
Did that meeting not occur a couple
No,
of weeks
ma'am.
ago?
I mean, we've just been now talking about this.
No, didn't the mayor and Fred meet?
We've been meeting on
No,
many occasions.
they've met on this document and gone over everything according to what was said.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And when anything, what I'm saying is,
That was so simple, we just went down the list all like.
I understand, but,
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
if there were
It's
red,
nonsense.
if there were red flags on it, then they should have been imparted to us, and we should have had the document so we could begin to look at it and understand it.
The only red flags that we came up with when we got down to the water and sewer.
I know, but we don't get it until tonight.
And
Okay.
so we had 2 or 3 meetings on Thursday, our meeting, Fred and Keith, Lee, and I started talking about it, and we just gone over the agreement, and we looked at some of those provisions that are totally unacceptable. And we will not, you can rest assured, sign off on something that was signed off on 10 years ago. We'll sit here till it freezes to get it right. We've been impacted tremendously from one end to
That's a
another.
separate document from what
And
the
that's
service
all.
agreement.
That's right.
And the service agreement needs our full attention if we have decided that we are going to take water and sewer out of it. And we need to, presentation to us so we can make that, an act of this body to separate that out, if that's what we intend to do.
You'll be
If there's
here.
anything else we need to separate out, then we need to go ahead and do it, but we don't need to hold up the rest of the service agreement, where anybody else is concerned.
Mayor, I know we're getting ready to go. Just one other thing. Lee, there was an ordinance, and I don't know which one, but the ordinance identified how many sewer taps the city of McDonough could actually have. And this whole agreement with deciding to go with the county for water had to do with our ability. No, it wasn't sewer taps. It was capacity. And so we need to make sure that as we move forward in looking at that, we also look at the capacity, because basically the agreement was made so that we could do expansion on one side of the city by trading off the other side. But that was all tied to the city's desire to go beyond this capacity. And so I'm sorry, I don't know what the specific ordinance is. I'm just coming from historical knowledge,
It's the
but
old comprehensive plan that was adopted back in 2004, and then you're talking about the exchange of customers into the west. And I've got actually all of those minutes that I've just recently pulled and been able to locate, and so I have been looking.
But I know that there was a hard, fast lock on the capacity. And when we got ready to bring in another subdivision, unless we got rid of those customers, then that expansion could not take place based on that particular ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Benson, thank you, ladies, and, we wanna get it right this time. It's gonna take some more time. We just had some conversation last 2 days, find out a little more about it. You'll be certainly kept abreast. We'll guide you and then give you a chance to, go into the details of this. Keith has done a marvelous job. Fred has laid out some things. This has been Fred's son has a concussion.
Yeah,
He's not here. That's the reason he's not here tonight. Fred has laid out some things on the map. We just gotta be sure about it, folks. It's been a costly process. I hope you'll be patient with me. I hope you'll be patient with others here. And Lee will quickly hear from you and get back. Rest assured, every council member, you'll be kept totally abreast of where we are. This is a big decision that we gotta make and protect the city of McDonough for the next 10 years. Ms. Batson, thank you so much for being here. You will be hearing from somebody here at City Hall tomorrow. I'll rest assured of that. I'm sorry that you were nice.
I'll be out of town tomorrow, I
You-
have death in the family, we'll be flying. out of
Is that
town.
right? Well, you'll be hearing from us when you get back, and we'll be working on that tomorrow. Thank you so much for your patience. Gina, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Any council members, chief, anyone?
I would say that where she's concerned, I think Chief Dorsey certainly could facilitate speaking with the county about getting appropriate signage and whatever, and if we need to move forward to protect these people because of this development, then we need to do it.
Don't let, that should never happen, and he's already talking. Do you have anything?
No, sir, I don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Actually, I really
Yes.
don't have anything else to say.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just need to say this for the record, the disclaimer was not on the agenda. The agenda was published October 24, 2014, and the ad ran in the paper noticing this special call meeting in the October 25th, 26th, 2014 edition of the Houston Daily Herald. Thank you.
Thank you. That's one of those things, sometimes got that check off here.
Well, my mistake, I didn't put it
No
on the
problem,
agenda.
it's not a big deal in the first place. Anybody else, Ms. Cam?
No.
If entertaining motion adjourned. Second. Thank you, Roger. All in favor, stand.